What do you do if your engine flames out in the F-16? When you're flying an F-16, it's a single engine airplane. So if you lose your engine, it's pretty critical. We have procedures that we call critical action procedures, known as CAPs. There's only 9 of them, and those CAPs are the most critical things. They live in our checklist, but you have to have them memorized. And they're steps that you take immediately as soon as something happens. Engine flameout is one of those CAPs. And if you were to follow the CAPs, they're actually slightly different depending on which engine variant you have of the F-16, but the initial steps would be zoom, stores, jettison, and then throttle would depend on the type of engine that you have, GE versus a Pratt engine. And then your engine secondary switch, just secondary and back to pry, capturing your best glide airspeed, and then looking for an engine restart. It's something that has to happen within the first few seconds of recognizing an engine flameout. Your next step, and really part of that whole process, is identifying if you're within gliding distance of a landable airfield. If you are not, you focus all of your attention on restarting your engine. If you are, you focus most of your attention then on flying a good flameout landing. If you've ever seen a fighter jet coming in to land at a base and they do a practice flameout landing, we call it a SFO, simulated flameout. They'll come up over the runway at about 10,000 feet, and then they'll do a descending 360-degree turn down to land. The altitude above the runway depends on the weight of the airplane, what this fuel and the stores weight is that day, and it will depend on that. If you hit that point, we call it high key, you will be able to safely land the airplane without an engine. So if you find yourself within gliding distance, if you can get to high key, or if you can glide to a low key and then a base key position, you know that you can safely land the airplane even without an engine. People talk about the F-16, it's known as the lawn dart because it doesn't have a very good glide ratio, and that is true. Compared to something like a Cessna, it barely glides. But we use as a rule of thumb what we call 1-to-1, and that is 1 mile for every 1,000 feet of altitude. It translates to, a nautical mile is 6,000 feet, and so it's actually 1,000 feet for 6,000 feet. That doesn't matter. We call it 1-to-1. It's easy, quick math. You're at 20,000 feet, you lose your engine. Are you within 20 miles of an airfield that you can land at? Yes or no? And then you go from there with your procedures. Thanks for the great questions. If you have more questions about flying the F-16, hit me up in the comments.